Dr. Ferguson, appreciate you painting the picture of what's at risk here, and knowing that the weaponization of space continues to accelerate. Can you talk about the impact on NORAD operations if there was a nuclear attack in space against joint satellites controlled by Canada and the United States to support our defense and deterrence measures?
The major impact is NORAD go blind. NORAD depends on elements of the U.S. space surveillance network, which we contribute one satellite to. It contains access to information from the Defense Support Program, which are infrared satellites both in geosynchronous and polar orbit, which can identify all rocket or missile launches, followed by the ground-based ballistic missile early warning network, which is cued from the DSP. You take out DSP, and that's a dangerous thing to do in other strategic considerations. Basically, NORAD would be unable to see. It would be very difficult, if highly improbable, to be able to undertake their primary mission in terms of aerospace warning. That is integrated tactical warning and attack assessment, in which they notify national command authorities if the United States and Canada are under attack and what is the nature of that attack. So it would be catastrophic.
So when you expand that, then we're already running blind then. Our ability to push out the horizon where we actually can see things. Even the advent of the new over-the-horizon radar system would be impacted in your estimation? I know they're not up and running yet, but they are ground-based.
If you could threaten the ground-based incident like over-the-horizon radars, but the loss of space entirely would not have that major effect of the over-the-horizon because they're primarily interested in air-breathing threats. Now, you have on the margin the question of hypersonics, which fly at roughly around 50 kilometers, sort of in what I call suborbital space at high speeds. It's unclear to me whether they're over the horizon, and they would need to be cued to go look at things, would be significantly affected because it's unclear whether the over-horizon can actually look. The other thing I would add is the United States has deployed an infrared system in low Earth orbit to deal with the problem both of ballistic missile defense and also, I suspect, to deal with the problem of hypersonic vehicles. So that's another element of a degree of redundancy for the American space surveillance system.
So, aside from those assets, what else do we need to do from a Canadian perspective then to augment what's happening by the United States under NORAD for better space deterrence? The question came up, or the comment came about arms race in space, but our adversaries, the Russians are putting nuclear weapons in space. The PRC is now landed on the far side of the moon. So what does Canada need to be doing to more greatly enhance our ability to deter and defend North America?
Well, I think two things are important. One is the next step that's being taken, and that is adding a satellite to the Sapphire 2, we could call it, for deep space surveillance, although it's primary to surveil the vital geosynchronous orbit. There has been some discussion, which would be also a good step to go back what we used to have in the 60s to the 80s, and that's going to be 2 ground stations. There's no clear indication this will proceed, but 2 optical ground stations to facilitate the surveillance of space. Those will assist us. But the key thing, if you put this in the context of NORAD, and it's unclear to me what Canada could or could not do. It can do lots of things, but in terms of surveillance of space, and the key thing to know when we're under attack or space is under attack is what we might contribute to the surveillance from space, the DSP system, and to ensure there's enough redundancy, because that is key to be able to identify launches. And once you identify launches, you can quickly calculate where they're going, whether they're going into orbit, what orbital path they're going to take, or whether they're a type of ballistic missile, as you mentioned, such as a fractional orbital bombardment system with a depressed trajectory that needs to be tracked.
Trajectory, which is different than the high orbit that usually what BMD was built around. We're now looking at those hypersonics that come in low and fast, but still are intercontinental.
Yeah, intercontinental ballistic missiles have a very high trajectory. They cut through low Earth orbit before they descend to Earth. The depressed trajectory of a fractional orbital bombardment system is one where the trajectory is much more flatter. It goes through the lower reaches of low Earth orbit before it reaches the target. So it partially enters into orbit before it descends on its targets.
So when we are looking at the Canadian, through everything through a Canadian lens, and we have Space Command under CAF, what type of investments do you recommend the Canadian Armed Forces should be making in our Space Command?
Well, the investments, they are the planned investments announced both in 2022 and then reiterated in the Defense Policy Update, are a good step forward for a major contribution, particularly the Defense Enhanced Surveillance from Space program, which will be a radar sat, but a military dedicated radar sat capability, which provide value both for the defense of North America, but also has global value because of the nature of orbital paths. So it's not that I think we can do much more than has already been planned. It's more, my concern is more that we will actually do it, and the commitments we make to allies about this.